Harlem Muse. You know, doing this YouTube channel is a real experience, a real challenge. Once you put yourself out there or put your ideas out there, people have a lot to say about it. They have their encouragement and they have their criticism. But the one that's really, really challenging for me is the people that say, yeah, you're doing a good job, but the yeah, but people. Yeah, the yeah, but people. You know, they give you compliments, but if you would do this, or if you would do that, or why don't you show this, or why don't you say that? I'm trying to do something different. I'm trying to talk to regular people. I'll get to those other people. But right now, I'm gonna get in where I fit in. All right, as I was walking through the park, I ran into
Diane Harris.
Okay, Diane, what's going on here? What is
Today
going on?
we're having the Mims family reunion. My grandparents raised my parents here, and this is where my mother and her sisters and brothers played.
Where are we? Where are we?
We're at 153rd Street and Bradhurst
Okay,
in Harlem, NYC.
that's right.
And every year, the Mims descendants, we gather for a family picnic here in this park to honor our ancestors, particularly Leon and Maggie Mims, who I'm their granddaughter. And here is the Mims family, descendants of the Mims. And then we have a lot of people who are our Hart family, because you know, Black life, we take in family and friends. My grandfather and my grandmother, they belong to Abyssinian Baptist Church. They migrated to New York, they worked their way up from the South Carolina, and then they worked up to Virginia, and they live in Maryland, and then finally they made it to Harlem. And my great-grandfather, Big Daddy, he was one of the men that worked when New York City took the Seneca Village for eminent domain and turned it to Central Park.
Right.
My great-grandfather, he got a job there working to create Central Park.
Okay.
When you hear me say mankind, I'm talking about others.
I get you.
Whenever I use the words we,
Right.
I talk about Black people, particularly the hands that picked cotton
Right.
and built this country, because
Right.
that's who my ancestors are.
Beautiful.
Okay, we were stolen and brought here. So I always tell people, like most people say African Americans, I particularly like to say Black Americans, because I want you to know I'm a descendant of the people who were enslaved, raped, and helped to build this country.
Right.
So I say that in particular. No offense to the term African American, but for me, Black American, hands that pick cotton.
Right.
That's who I am, and proud of it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're
I'm
welcome.
glad you decided to do this.
Yes,
think,
I'm camera shy.
no,
I'm the
it-
behind the scenes person.
It don't look like it to me. No. Okay. This is it. The first interview with Amadoma Bediako. She's a doula. She's a priestess. She's a dancer. She's an MC. She's a mother, a grandmother, friend, many other things probably that I don't know. But she's also a very, very, very interesting person that I've come to know over the years and appreciate. So, Amadoma, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and why you do it.
Well, I think you can remove doula from the list because now I am a doula trainer and mentor.
Okay.
So I'm not staying up all night waiting for babies to come anymore. I'm passing the torch and I'm helping other people to do that kind of support.
So we add teacher to the list, I guess.
Oh yeah, teacher, trainer. I think I'm a
Instructor.
teacher, at heart.
So How did this journey begin for you? I mean, I know there's a lot of influences and things, but it just in terms of being a doula, wanting to be a doula, wanting to explore that part of your creative gifts. How did you start?
Well, I had a really good pregnancy and a beautiful birth experience when I had my daughter almost 50 years ago. She'll be 50 in December. And I hear a lot of people talk about the horrors that they go through giving birth. And I felt that it doesn't have to be that way. And so I wanted to help people to have the kind of experience that I had as much as possible.
Okay.
So I just started going with people to birth. I would support people when they were in labor, and then they would tell friends and family, and oh, call Amadoma.
Okay.
And I did it for years before I knew people were getting paid to do what I was doing.
So I know there's a lot of technical aspects to it and physical things, you know, that you have to know and you have to be able to do. And so how did you get to that point?
Well, I did it for many years before I did any training, before I was trained to be a doula. And I think what's important is having a giving spirit and being willing to leave your stuff at the door and really be there for somebody.
Okay.
And I think it's one of those fields that I think you learn to do that more so than other fields. Like a lot of times a person will go to work and they still have their argument that they had with their partner on their mind. But when you're with someone in birth, it really behooves you to leave your stuff and just really be there for that person, for what they're going through. And it's an intense time. It's a beautiful time, but it's an intense time. And so you don't really have room for your stuff along with all the stuff that's coming up for them.
Right. And the new life that's coming forth.
Exactly.
Also.
It's a transitional period, and
Right.
it's a very sacred time. So it's important for you to be able to be of service, to be humble and leave your stuff aside and understand that what's important right now is the transition of this child from the womb to the world.
So okay, so we have the period of you with a giving spirit, just being there for I guess these are people that you know, people in your circle that are going through the birthing process, right? So
not always. It wasn't always people that I knew.
it was you became known as somebody to be there to help people before you
Yeah,
got
I mean,
people.
in the beginning, it was friends and family, but as time went on, and I started working with the health department, sometimes I would be able to meet the person ahead of time, and then there were even times when I got called when the person was already in labor.
Okay, so how did you get to be with the health department? Was there a test, some kind of training, some kind of
Divine intervention.
That's what happened?
Well, I really believe that if you put it out there, if you say that you want to do something, that's a form of prayer. And before something can be manifested, it's first a thought and the desires there. And for example, I had said, when I learned how important breastfeeding was, I said, I want to stand on the rooftop in my community and talk to our people about why it's important to breastfeed. And one day I was at a health fair. I had a table at a health fair for the place where I go to the doctor. And a woman that I didn't know walked up to me and she said, did you breastfeed your babies? And I said, yes. And she said, how would you like to be a breastfeeding peer counselor? So I looked into that and I became a breastfeeding peer counselor, and I was doing breastfeeding circles and support groups for 9 years with the WIC department.
Wow.
The WIC program.
So
that desire and that intention to serve my community manifested in me becoming a breastfeeding peer counselor.
Okay, before we move on, I want to introduce another aspect of your life, right? You're also an Akan priestess, that's right?
Yeah, well, we don't technically say priestess because in the language, there's no differentiation between male and female.
So priest.
Right.
Okay, so you're an Akan priest. So there's a level of spirituality to your approach to life. I understand. I mean, what you said about speaking things and actually speaking it into existence. So this is a belief system that you were carrying with you the whole time?
I guess I didn't know it until I started seeing it.
Okay.
You can believe something or you can know something.
Seeing is believing, right?
If something keeps showing up in your life,
right.
After a while you realize, wow, this is not just a belief. This is real. This is fact. This is one of the universal laws. I think anybody's capable of doing it. We just don't always know that we can.
At some point in your life, you formalized it with the Akan practices, and even taking it to the level of being a priest. So I just want to know, how did that start from you? Was it family that you were born into it, or is it, something that drew you to it somehow?
Well, my maternal grandmother passed away before I was born, and I was named after her. And I always felt her presence in my life. Mm-hmm. And my mother often told me about things that I did that she used to do.
Okay.
And when I heard Nana Yao Paradini Zulu, who was the person responsible for bringing the Akan tradition formally to America, when I heard him speak about our ancestors, that's what really got my ear, because I had been connected with the Akan community 3 different ways. I went to an open house that they had, which is a fundraiser they used to have every year. I went to a dance class when they had the place in Long Island City, and I went to a religious ceremony. But none of those things really got me interested until I heard him talk about the significance of our ancestors in our lives, because I already felt the significance of my grandmother in my life, and I wanted to know more about that. So once I heard that, I started asking questions. I used to go with a notebook full of questions, different. I want to know more, more. And then finally somebody said to me, sometimes asking questions is good, but sometimes you got to get involved, and through the practice, you learn more.
Right.
And I had a spiritual reading. It was through divination that I was told that there was a deity that wanted me to become a priest. And so I trusted the process, and, I went into training to become a priest. And there are a lot of things that I wouldn't have known that I would be doing now that I'm doing, but, part of it was trust. But I think to a certain extent, I was being guided to do it. Like, maybe my grandmother, maybe she would have been a priest had she been exposed to the lifestyle. She was clairvoyant. My mother told me that she used to see spirits in the house where she lived, and her mother thought it was just imaginary friends. And then one day she found out the energy that my grandmother was experiencing was the people that used to live in the house.
Wow.
So it could have been some of both. You asked about family ties.
Right.
It could have been that, and I didn't even know it.
Mm-hmm. So the way you're speaking is like you were set on a path even before you realized you were on the path.
Exactly. I think so.
Even with the birthing thing. So it's like I'm getting a little chill bumpy, but it's like
thank you.
So now we've made our way from breastfeeding counselor or speaker to someone who actually works with the health department. And in my mind, that seems like a jump, you know what I mean? Because usually once you get involved with systems and governments, they want receipts, they want certificates, they want, somebody else with a white coat to say, okay, she's okay, she could do it. So how did you get into the healthcare system?
It's interesting. I never thought about it before, but the connection was through the breastfeeding, because every year there's an organization called BABE, and I forgot what the acronym is for, but they have a breastfeeding celebration the first Friday of August. August is like a special month for breastfeeding. There's World Breastfeeding Week and National Breastfeeding Month, I think it is. And in the end of the month, we have Black Breastfeeding Week, because we have a special need in our community. But anyway, I went to this BABE celebration at Bed-Stuy Restoration, and one person who was tabling there was a doula, Regina Conceição, and she invited me. She asked me would I like to be a doula in Brooklyn. I said, yeah, Brooklyn's my hometown. I'm from Brooklyn. I would love to work in my community. Right. And so she referred me to the person who interviewed me to start working with the health department. Shortly after that, there was a training for doulas that the health department was offering, and I asked could I audit it. Now I had already trained with ICTC, which is the International Center for Traditional Childbearing that Shafia Monroe started years ago. She felt that we need more Black midwives, we need more Black doulas. So I did that training after many years of doing the work, and then I did another training with the health department. At least I thought I was just auditing it, but at the end of the trainer gave me a certificate.
There you go.
I could certify with another organization.
Right.
And then months after that, they realized, this particular organization realized that they weren't doing much in communities of color. And so a woman who was the multicultural coordinator for that organization said, well, why don't you help the sisters out? So they started giving fellowships to women of color to serve our communities. And I got a
Wow.
fellowship. I applied for it and I got a fellowship to become a doula trainer with the organization.
Wow.
So one thing just fed into the next, to the next, to the next.
Yeah.
Let me add another thing.
Oh.
The trainer for the health department mentioned when she left, she was going to go to Tanzania and Mozambique. No, she said, when I leave here, this training, I'm doing one in Trinidad and I'm going to Mozambique. And my ear lit again. Oh, I could do that. And so in 2018, I had an opportunity to go to Tanzania to train doulas and help birth companions in Tanzania. Fully paid for, they covered everything. Even when I invoiced it, I didn't invoice my travel time. And the woman said, oh, you have to invoice. I'm like, what? It was amazing. So, again, manifesting something that I felt like I wanted to do.
Wow. I mean, it's funny how, well, seems funny to me that when you look in retrospect, it just seems like it was just dominoes that had to fall in a certain way. You know what I mean? It was just, everything just followed. Sometimes when you're in it, maybe you might have realized it, but some people, when they're in these processes, they don't realize it in the moment. You know what I mean?
That's why reflection is so important.
Right. And spirituality. Yeah, well, the kind that you or I might practice, let me put it that way. It gives you some kind of perspective, I think. But anyway, we're moving on. Okay, this went really quick and it went really well. I got to time it because I don't know how much time it took.
You're a good interviewer, Ken.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Because I thought you were just going to ask me those 5 questions. That would have been boring.
No. We need to know who we're talking to here. At least, I try to. I don't like
people. Your lane, boss move, simple and plain, or esoteric comedic. Just get it and fit it and swag, a spirit, laugh and lyric, like each step is song. So long, carbon copy, G or poppy. Faith has no facsimile. We coming forth by day, Amena Ashe. Even predators prey, facing the sky. I see silver linings in shades of blue. Whether the glass is half empty or full, savor the rule, a kaleidoscope of hope. So just do you.
Up in Harlem during the 1920s and 1930s, 7th Avenue in the 130s was nicknamed the Boulevard of Dreams. A stretch of Harlem lined with top theaters and clubs such as the Lafayette Theater and Connie's Inn. Between these venues was one lone elm tree known as the Tree of Hope. Up-and-coming entertainers would touch it for good luck. Hubie Blake and others supposedly touched that tree. The tree didn't last very long because in 1934, when 7th Avenue was widened, they chopped it down. The tree was soon replaced, however, by a sculpture created by Bill Robinson, also known as Bojangles. He titled the piece The Tree of Hope, just like that old elm tree. It's now located at Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard and 131st Street. And just a note, that old elm tree, part of it was saved and put on the stage of the Apollo. So to this day, artists, upcoming artists, and well-known artists still rub that same old tree for good luck. All right, thanks for sticking and staying. You can like and subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And remember, don't wait till a moment becomes a memory to give it value.